Welcome to the DragonShip. I'm Thor, and welcome aboard this Saturday where a rising tide lifts all boats. And we're going to have a conversation today. We're going to talk about frame. We're going to talk about taking small actions over time and gaining massive results. So, without further ado, let's get started aboard the DragonShip. Let me bring up everybody, and we'll go ahead and get started today. Yeah. We have Glenn Lawrence. We have Huds, the Hudsman. And we have Mark Daniels. We have Laurel from Tokyo. And we have Andre, new member. And we also have Sam. Sam saying yes. Hey, Sam, how you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty well.
Good,
Enjoying life here in Miami.
Excellent, excellent. Vikings to the shield wall. Today, we're going to talk about frame at work and frame in conflict. We keep talking about frame because it's so important, I think. I mean, once you've achieved money, your muscles, your game, frame ties it all together with your identity. And we're missing Wraith today. You know what? Shout out to Wraith. We're broadcasting on his channel too. Get well, Wraith. We're going to miss you today. We're going to talk about frame. Guys, I want to talk a little bit about frame at work. Why is frame at work so important? I mean, work takes up a large amount of our lives. I mean, it really does. I can remember, I'll tell you guys a story about when I was young, and I, much like Mark Daniels and probably Lauren too, we would go to work, and work was kind of the big deal. I mean, we literally set our family and our children aside for work, and we were expected to do so. World War II generation that fought came out were quite militaristic, and they, work is a big deal. You're providing for your family and you're building society. It really was, there are no sick days, kid. Get your shit together, come to work. That was the frame. I'm serious. Oh, your wife's having a kid. Well, we're restoring power to the grid. So as soon as you're done, you can go say hi to your new kid that just popped out for a day or so. And then you got to get back to work. We're not paying you. Hurry up, get back to work or somebody will replace you. I mean, that was kind of the frame that we lived in. Now, do I agree or disagree? Well, I think we could have been a little softer about it, but I think we've gone, excuse me, guys, my cord is choking me here. All right. It's pulling a rear naked choke on me. But, back then it seemed like this is a big deal. My survival depended on work in corporate America, or that's what we're all taught, I was fortunate though to have seen my father in business for himself. And it was just as hard. He worked much harder than his employees, actually, and in some cases earned less in order to build a future. So his frame there was really important, being able to connect with people, getting them to work for him in directions so that they all did better and better and better in life and could provide, for their families and themselves. I think it's changed a little bit over time. Some of the changes have been very much for the better. Have anybody here heard about work-life balance? I mean, that's the big deal right now. And I think there's something to work-life balance. Of course there is, but the reality is as a man, work never ceases for you. Work-life balance is really designed, shall I say, for the ladies, since they've entered the workforce. Because a man's frame is, look, you got to go on the hunt. There's no rest on the hunt. You can rest when you're dead. I can remember, in the service that I was in, which is restoring the power grid, we worked for, all night long. I remember one time I had a running count of 104 hours straight without sleep. Yes, I was loopy. I was tired. I got freaking strep throat after it. But that was the cost. That was the price. That's what we did because that's what we did. I mean, was it healthy? Absolutely not. But it was a frame, Men don't quit. We don't quit until the food's on the table, until the mammoth is down and we chop it up. Then we can rest. But, work-life balance is a big deal. And I think it's been used to really beat men down into a soft position too today. Somewhat, I think there's some good that comes from it, but I've also seen, it's not a bad thing, but just like anything, it can be used, in a way in which it's nothing but an excuse not to be a man. I need work-life balance. So, I only do my corporate job from, such and such time to such and such time. So therefore, because of that, and because of my Call of Duty time, my beer time. I have no other time to do anything else. So therefore, I can't invest. I can't educate myself. I can't go socialize. I can't develop game. I'm just locked. And therefore, I am what I am. Here I am. And then sleepwalk through life with that slave mentality. I think that's missing today. And frame at work is bypass that slave mentality. I think that we really need to have frame at work. And when I say frame at work, I don't mean being combative. I mean understanding what you're there for. You're there to learn, you're there to use your skills to provide for yourself and your family till the next best thing comes along, you know. And you should be prepared with frame, just like at work, just like with women. You have to realize that there is no one-itis. It is not the work for you forever. There is no soulmate work for you, you know, as a man. You need to be prepared to walk away at any time. And when you do, you'll realize that all of this, you know, it's just kind of a facade. Your value is huge. And if I've watched guys at work get offered double salary to leave and do less work, and they didn't do it because they were beaten down by the promise of work-life balance. You know, I'm afraid to go because I got work-life balance here, but I can make double the salary there. Yeah, it's a risk. Anyway, it's a mindset for sure. When you have frame at work, you have to balance several things. I know when you have frame in all relationships, you know, when we talk about frame, it's not being a butthole. It's not, it's acquiring your character. It's being straightforward. With frame comes an awful lot of honor, in my opinion, and being able to accept things as they are and being able to move past things as they are and or change things as they are where you can. You know, it's like realizing the things you can change and doing it and the things you can't change and working around it. And then, you know, having the firepower to make the difference. Right. And that's up here. So I wanted to talk about that. And I wanted to get into, you know, humility in frame too, because I think oftentimes we get beat over the head here in the West where people tell us, you know, be humble, don't be arrogant, don't be arrogant. And I think humility and humbleness is a different thing. I think humbleness has been used as a hammer by the gynocentric feminine order here to beat men down and make them soft. I got a little video on that our friend Kevin Sabo put out over there at Red Pill Lions. He's a young guy, and he talks a little bit about him being raised and trained to be soft, you know, and we'll talk a little bit about how humility is actually quite a virtue. And it's something that's important. And Lauren, there in Tokyo, it's a very important part of their society, which I think the West has somewhat lost and confused with, you know, being humble. You don't have to be humble. If you have what you have, you just have it. It's not demonstrating it. It's just you have it. You know, you don't have to explicate it. You don't have to announce it. And when we get into the conflict side on frame today, you're going to see a lot of folks are going to have to tear others down and announce how much they have and how much frame and control they have. And in reality, they can't demonstrate any of it. And it's a valid tactic. I can see that used a lot at work where people will tear other people down. This is a frame to hold at work. I tear other people down by specifically pointing out their mistakes and putting myself into the frame with my bosses that I am so much better. I don't make those mistakes. That's a very valid tactic that's used by many in corporate America. It's one of the rules of power. You could do that, you know, and you could do it carefully. I've never seen it last too long, but it's used, and it's used. Sometimes they call it punching the ticket, where you'll do that to your peer group, point out everybody doing wrong things, and you're the savior. And then right when things start to maybe falter, you use all that goodwill you built up with your bosses and those that you trust by pointing others down. And then you get out and you go start a new career somewhere else or a new job somewhere else. So you're always skating behind the damage that you leave behind by tearing others down. I see it on social media a lot too. And we're going to talk about clout jacking today as well as a frame. You know, be aware of what that is. So with that, I think I'll go ahead and introduce everybody, and then I'll play the part on why men are soft, and we'll get into a conversation. What do you guys say?
Let's do it.
Oh,
Shoot, I hit something wrong. I removed you by accident, Thor. I just added you back.
my
to
back.
the
No worries, man.
I'm causing problems already.
Yeah, no worries.
Still got to get this computer fixed. But that sounds good. I guess just I can go ahead and start just basic introduction.
Sure.
I do dating coaching. I'm a little bit younger here, but I bring the wisdom that I've learned through the years to improve everybody as much as I can. And I have to say, frame in the workplace is something that we talked about. I have to deal with a lot, and it's interesting. Like when you were talking about the type of people that tear others down, I deal with that a lot, and so it's very interesting how to actually manage it in an effective way without getting too frustrated. Because to tell you what, I have gotten frustrated with it.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Glenn Lawrence, you have an announcement to make too. You got a new movie coming up, don't you?
Yes, I did just get casted in a film called The Memories of the Heart. I'm Glenn Lawrence. If you guys don't know me, I'm the DragonShip instigator.
Yeah, we bring him out for the muscle. He did good. He's going to work with us today. He's done some amazing debates, red pill debates. He's definitely defended some of the positions that the red pill holds and were so eloquently put to pen by Rollo Tomasi. And he's done good at holding his frame in conflict, which we'll talk about at length, and why it's important to hold a solid frame, especially in conflict. And Andre, give us a little bit of background, man. Tell us how you are.
Doing great. Thank you, Thor and Huds and everybody having me on here. And the Rod and Glenn and Mark and Sam says yes, baby. Yeah, there we go. I'm an NLP guy and hypnosis. I do integration and change work to get guys what they want to get beyond all the negative frame set of cultural Marxism and feminisms to guys become the best they are to get everything they want out of life. And frame is everything. Frame is everything, guys. So, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And I can't wait for the other guys to say what they're going to say.
Oh, awesome. We have Laurent early in the morning over there in Tokyo, mastermind of many different trade possibilities, a self-employed entrepreneur, holding his frame worldwide. Welcome, Laurent.
Thank you.
And he's going to talk to us a little bit today. And don't forget, he is a best-selling author too. You can find his book on Amazon, which is a logarithmic trading with Python, right?
That's right.
And it's pretty amazing too. It's nice to have you on board. And Mark Daniels from Mark's Inspiration. Say hi to everybody. Mark, tell us what you're up to, man. What's coming up on your show today, huh?
You check me out on Instagram at Mark's Inspiration or my website at marksinspiration.com. If you'd like to get my help personally, I've got a couple of published books on Amazon, Coming Back Home, The True Adventure of Mark Daniels, and The Power is Within. About to lose my voice today, so I'm going to stay on as long as I can with you guys. But it's just good to be here, and I'm ready to talk about the topic at hand.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark's recovering from beating up 19-year-olds, you guys. If you look at his Instagram, he's knocking around 19-year-olds in the ring. Don't let the 62-year-old man fool you. All right, he got some hands on him. Okay, he got hands.
Definitely does. That's for sure. Sam saying yes. Welcome, Sam. Appreciate you coming on board. How's things down there in Miami? Is it nice and humid?
Yeah, it's great. I was actually been fishing in the Everglades recently, amongst working in IT, which that's what I do. I can teach you how to get a job in IT, teach you how to code, and help you along with the process. Hit me up at Sam Saying Yes on Instagram. But yeah, just living the life down here, staying really, really busy. Speaking of work, where I barely have any time for anything. So glad to be able to hop on the stream with y'all.
Now, Sam has a little bit of humility here. Sam's more than that. Sam definitely has been involved in the red pill space. He's been helping a lot of the content creators, and we really appreciate Sam's point of view. So thank you for coming on board, Sam. Appreciate that. All right, let's get into it, guys. I'm going to go ahead and jump over and take a look. I have a couple of good friends that I met in Miami that you'll see on screen. These are Kevin Savo, Rocky Savo. I think Tori's in the background too. They did a little podcast, and just to frame it, we'll watch the first 3 minutes. And I think a big part of having frame at work is how men are raised and when they go to work. And it's interesting. So he's going to talk about why he felt guilty for being a man growing up. And it doesn't surprise me at all. If you've been under a rock, it would shock you. But, having raised 3 boys and watching the transition into where we are today, there's a whole lot of media and education system that pushes masculinity down. Well, I mean, it's actually said to be masculinity is a toxic wannabe disorder in APA. That's the American Psychological Association. They printed such. And when we get into conflict, we'll talk about the APA and the DSM and all that stuff, but it's not. It's a natural state of being. So, but just like anything, if you're beaten down enough, a beaten dog, is just going to cower in the corner. So let's listen to him and see what he has to say, and we'll have some comments on it. All right, here we go. So chat, let me know if you can't hear it. Here we go. We'll do the first 3 minutes.
When I came into adulthood and when I started dealing with women, I actually was under the impression that most women today were gay or bi and did not find men attractive. And I didn't realize how much I felt guilty for being a man and how guilty I felt about my sexuality. I felt perceived as gross, like male sexuality, like my sexual,
we were just talking about
like
this.
my sexual instincts.
Yeah.
I felt gross about it. And I actually remember telling like one of like my female social justice warrior friends. I remember telling her,
How is that even a thing?
yeah, I remember telling her, as a girl that I worked on music with, and I remember telling her, I'm like, this, I guess I know, I was almost like apologetic. I'm like, I know like my sexuality is kind of like gross as a straight man. I said, but this wasn't my own like ingenious misogynistic idea to want to fuck women, right? Like, this wasn't, that this wasn't
They
like,
think you can control it.
yeah, I
That's
was
what-
like, I felt perceived as like some like fucking sexual ape.
Schema.
It's just like,
because men can fuck without emotion tied to it, and like women can't comprehend that. So to them, it's
Hey.
gross. To them, it's gross, and they
It's
kind of
like
perceive
taking a
that on
piss for
you.
y'all.
They kind of perceive that on you as like giving you the impression that you're gross, even though that's not necessarily the case. We're just
Right.
two
But
different
getting
types of
the
people.
rape
But-
statistics too that are outlandish.
Right.
Yeah, then it just gives you a bad perspective.
Well,
and-
so this also then tied into being demasculized. Is that the word?
Yeah, because you have to hide
Okay.
it, right?
So because I felt that
There we
way,
go.
emasculated.
right?
Emasculated.
Because I felt that way and I was under that impression that that's how men were perceived, so that's how I was perceived. It directly fed into how I operated in, let's say, my first couple relationships,
Like a simp.
like a simp, because
Yeah.
I thought everything I needed to do to keep a woman happy and make her feel secure dealt with dialing back masculinity.
This
that
is good.
any masculine traits, this is actually how I felt, and I didn't like put it into perspective till recently, that any like overbearingly hard, tough, or masculine traits would turn the woman off or scare her away.
Right.
Because back to what
And it
Torsia
just
started real
fucking
quick.
got me walked all over.
Remember?
So real quick, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, I had no grasp of even the fact that women like to be like fucked hard. Like I had like no grasp of the fact that a woman even wanted to be handled in a rough way,
Some
and
don't
that
even
she
know.
found that attractive. Like I had a girl at the time that if I would fucking, and I was still muscular then too.
Yeah.
I had a girl at the time that if I fucking picked her up and threw her around and shit, she would have thought it was the hottest thing in the world. And I was actually under this impression that like everything about me had to be soft. It had to be less hard, less aggressive, less masculine. And it got me fucking walked all over as a result. And I had like zero clue what the fuck was going on. So
Yeah.
I didn't realize how deep it ran.
Because that's the weird dynamic. What
That's the part I wanted you guys to see. Pretty interesting, isn't it? I mean, fascinating. He nailed it. He really did, because we're all trained that way. I mean, I can even remember towards the end of high school, even for me being 60 and Mark, there was a softening that was coming. I could kind of see the edges of it in the media and things like that. This was, when they had, TV started to really, show the men as buffoons. So they had done it before, but it was a kind of a softening of men and teaching men. And then, when I had my son, my oldest son in 85, by, mid 90s, when he did basketball, everybody got a trophy. Everybody got a trophy. Everybody was pushed down to where they had to be super nice guy. Some of the regrets I have raising those sons is I didn't recognize it sooner. What do you guys think about this? This is kind of how men come out of, their youth. I think a lot of men come out like that, and it's shown when they do surveys about men and sexuality. But what I'm saying is they come out that way and they hold this frame, and this is where they are in their entire life, even at work. You know, this very soft.
I want to say something on that. It's interesting. I think that they're like men are told that because it's kind of there's a lot of things in that statement. So in the way we teach men, they don't want men to be aggressive unless it's calibrated.
Yes.
Calibrated aggressiveness, calibrated dominance is all of it. So when they say they want you to be in your feelings, they want you to be more emotional, it's really what they're saying is like, we want you just to do it right.
Oh, I like that, because I see that I have two versions of that in the workplace now. On the corporate side, I see that. And then when I use the subcontractors, it's be a man, tough the fuck up, and get the work done. And you're paid handsomely for that, for being tough and straight to the point. On the corporate side that manages it, it's exactly what you said. It better be damn calibrated. I see two different sides of that right now. I wonder if anybody else sees that out in the work environment. Yeah. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on men are being raised soft. They're carrying it into the workplace. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think that's what's going on. You know, I mean, the participation trophy nonsense, it eliminates the winners and losers. And we need winners and losers in life. Okay, we need to have standards for winners and losers. Because when we don't have standards for winners and losers, then everybody's the same. Then we don't know, nobody's better than anybody. And it's not that we need people to be better than anybody, but you know, when guys need to look at it, see what does a real man have that these women want, they need to still have something to contrast against. And if you can't see that there's areas in your life that you're lacking, that you need to work on, then you have no place to work, no place to improve. So winners and losers is a good thing. Like participate. I remember when my son played football, right, and he was a great football player. And he went to the ship. I was his coach. We took that thing like nobody's business. We got the trophy. The next year we came second place. And as a coach, they're like, okay, you guys gonna get trophies? I said, no, we're giving them ribbons. They don't deserve trophies. Winners get trophies. And I remember I had all the parents pissed off. I was like, you guys are lucky I'm giving ribbons, just to acknowledge that their work. I mean, that's me being nice. But the parents were like, oh, Timmy deserves what? Timmy rode the bench the whole damn time. Timmy didn't do nothing. Okay, Timmy, there's no participation. You don't get get rewarded. You don't get paid because you show up. You get paid to do your job. Okay, you don't get in promotions because you do your job. You get promotions because you go above and beyond your job. That's the difference, and people need to realize that. Guys need to realize that.
Yeah, I see this here. I see Ward's making some good comments. I see the difference between my construction friends and my more scheming and political friends. Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, finance friends, right? Friends, right. Interesting. You know, I used to get. We used to all get trophies every 2 weeks. It was on Friday, and I had a couple of the old guys that would show up on Friday morning. They worked on the crew. They usually were knuckle draggers wearing jeans, but on Fridays, the oldest guys that I showed up with in the 80s showed up and they would clip on a tie. Why do you suppose that is? They get all dressed up because it was fucking paid. They get up. I swear this was their frame back then. Oh, time to get paid. And they used to hand out paychecks. It wasn't just direct deposit then, right? And there was at least 4 or 5 guys that were super well respected, as tough as can be. I mean, some of them were Golden Gloves champions, ex-Vietnam vets, you know. Here it is Friday. Every Friday, they'd show up in the morning with a nice shirt and a tie on. And they get their paycheck. And we'd tease him sometimes, like, why would you do that? He says, they're paying me for my skill, and I'm showing them respect, accepting this money for doing it. It's, you know, what a different frame.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point. And I know that they have that old adage, dress for the job you want, not the one you have. But it goes further than that. If you're just dressed well and you carry yourself well, people think you're more respected than maybe you are. I know I've had a lot of people, you know, even though I'm younger, I've had a lot of people think that I'm like an executive just because of the way I carry myself around the workplace.
Right. Interesting. Look what Matt says. He says your reward for showing up to work is you get to do the next step, earn money. That it is true. However, I will tell you, because of woke culture, this is not the case every time. I mean, I have seen, yes, they're paying a salary, but there's a big part of training to make people feel welcome, which on itself, I don't see that as a bad thing. But there's a big part that's being taught, right? How should I say this? Whereas a part of your reward for coming to work and being a good boy is to feel welcome, is to, you know, have your potlucks, you know, have your little parties at work and feel good. And who knows, the girls will sometimes set up a ball pit for the kids, you know, in the front office. Not necessarily bad things, but very different things than I was used to. I'm used to work being a far more serious affair. I don't really want my work to be a family. I want to go to battle with my workers. And that's probably part of me being old and knowing how dangerous this work is and holding piers that have been broken and burned as we're waiting for the life flight to come in. It's a very different thing for me. And I can't imagine people that sit in an office would really understand. Maybe that's why I feel that way. I mean, you guys all have different experiences with work. What do you think of this whole thing? And
I want to
holding
make a point.
work? Yeah.
I want to make a point on what you said, Thor, what you started out with talking about. The reason these younger people don't understand this, or a lot of them, excluding present company, is guys like you and I and people before us, men before us, built this country and made it so safe and so comfortable that they don't have to experience anything we've experienced. And so they don't understand when you talk like you did, Thor, at the beginning. I was just thinking of some of the younger people looking at you thinking, where's this guy talking about? He's back in the old age, the Neanderthal ages, talking about honor and staying up all night and working and all this and keeping the power going. Yeah, these guys are all wrapped up in their little home, $1 million or $2 million, $500,000 homes in their cut grass neighborhoods. And they're so protected and so safe, and they can just call the police and the police will be right there. But there's a whole world out there that doesn't even know anything about that. But there's so much in their bubble, they can't relate to what you're talking about. I can, but it's guys like you and your friends that got burned up. They kept the electric going so they could be safe in their little home and their little bubble. But they just have no grasp of the contrast between the life they live and the life the men have to live to give them what they have today. Look at the guys who used to build the skyscrapers. You've seen the old films, they're walking around. There's no safety lines. People fell in some of the dams. There's men in there because they fell in there while they were pouring the concrete and you couldn't take them out. Right. But these people are so far removed from that they just, and then they're not open-minded enough because they're so programmed by the media and social media that they don't understand reality. Yeah. And I certainly don't discount life. Safety should be number one. You should do everything to keep people from being hurt. But you should recognize where we came from. And I really appreciate you, Mark. You've been there. You know the danger of the world. And I'll tell you, I have to say it again. I'm going to point to Andrew Tate because what he said, and I've watched some of his clips, you know, I've chatted with him on Instagram before and before he got banned. And what he says in whole is very attractive because what is being broadcast to the young people today, they don't know what we went through. They don't have that burner proof, Mark. They don't have that frame at work. It's super attractive to men that don't have these things because it is reality for men. It is masculinity. And I am so proud and hopeful seeing the numbers that have listened to his message. It's pretty impressive. It really is. I have another clip maybe later we can get to where people are asked about Andrew Tate. And it's pretty amazing that people with no knowledge of Andrew Tate whatsoever follow the crowd that doesn't like him just because they don't know about him. Any of you guys finished that? It strikes the essence of men. That's what I believe. And even if they're in denial because they've been programmed with social media for so long, it hits something inside them. So some of them get angry and lash out at them because they have to protect their little false identity. But the ones that realize that this is really we all have a warrior within us and we need to find a way to express that. And that warrior wants adversity, he wants challenge, and you almost need that as a man to feel fulfilled. It's like when I sparred last weekend with my son. You know, I hadn't been in the ring for over a year, but there's a feeling a man gets from that I just it's a battle thing because you know you might get hurt. So and young people don't experience that because of all, and I agree with safety, but we're so safe we're killing ourselves.
Mhm. Oh yeah, I
It's
think
a
that's
mindset thing, you know, like guys can look at work like, oh, I have to go to work. No,
I get
you
to go
get to go to work.
damn
You
right.
get to go show out how good of an employee you are. You get the opportunity to be successful. You get the opportunity to prove your success and level up. You don't have to do shit. You get to. Okay? And it's like you get to earn that check. You're not entitled to anything but death and taxes in this world. Okay? So you get to prove your value. Your value is not proven just because you exist. You get to prove it. And that should be your mindset. It's not like, oh, I have to. No, I get to.
And you get to provide service to humanity. That's something else people don't understand. When you provide service to humanity, there's a fulfillment a man gets. I don't know about women, but men get that you get from nothing else. I don't care. You give somebody 5,000 a week to sit on their ass, or give them 5,000 a week to work. The one that takes it for working is going to have a more fulfilling life than the guy who just takes the cash. But most people now would say, "Oh, I'll take the cash."
yeah.
If I can go on that, what Mark is saying, and I'm glad you said that, and Glenn, how you know I get to do this. Each of us have different backgrounds, and when you go out and start to master something, that's the reason why the Italian, one of my superheroes, Il Maestro Miguel Angelo, is that he gave up. He when he was done with the Sistine Chapel, I think he lost like something like 50% of his eyesight because of the lead-based oil paint falling in his eyeballs. Even though he had like 30, 40 assistants painting that thing, right? He gave up his eyesight from one of the most iconic pieces of artwork. Tesla gave up. He died of the neuropathy of electric magnetism poisoning. Edward Van Halen gave up and got cancer because he would hold the metal pick in his mouth. I don't know if you all know that. Besides being exposed to electromagnetism because of all the amps, you know, it's like that whole thing. What do you want, Laurent? The whole thing about mastering the idea of being able to figuring how to make money daily in day trading in bonds and stock trading. Glenn, what you got to give up to act like, man, I want to go work out, but I got to figure out how to become somebody else. Figuring out code, figuring out you know what Mark does, painting a house and all the new stuff and what it takes. Any aspect of what we do as a guy, we get so much satisfaction. I freaking did this. You heard Thor saying, hey, dude, I worked 104 hours or 108 hours or whatever it was. My friends used to make fun of me in the restaurant business. Andre worked another 36-hour day. You know, or when I was opening up Italian and French restaurants, I would do 120 hours a week. And I was like, dude, whoa, let's do it again. Man, we made more money. We you know, our P&L, man, our P&L. You know, our losses there, and we're making money. Paid off one restaurant in 30 days. That was one of my opus, right? But all of Mark, you know what it's like. I train guys. They're doing this. They understand how to put primer or sand stuff down and get the right paint, and it looks great, like it's sprayed and it's painted with a brush. HUDs, when you're figuring all this stuff out, but all this stuff for all of us, man, is once you're a guy, the pleasure of the awesomeness of being a man and figuring I cracked the freaking code. Part of it is brains, but it's time. And then you start to take that brains and time and bring it together. And then it becomes skill. Then it becomes your identity. Who am I? I am a man and I do X, Y, and Z. And man, once you get that identity, which I think a lot of the men pick up stuff not inside the manosphere, and some people don't talk about it, as you become your man, not somebody else's definition, yours, you is the guy, you is the man, and making that stuff happen. And that's the shit that I love.
Fantastic. That is the essence, Andre, of Frame at Work. Fantastic, man.
It's a little bit of a different environment these days, though, I think, for a lot of us.
Yeah.
In the corporate world, if you're talking about white collar, it is conniving. You know, people, you have to deal with you know, someone may let you go at any time. So, and if you can work remote as well, you have to have multiple ones. We're talking about the analogy. The frame is they're serving you. So you can work multiple remote jobs at the same time. You can work multiple, you know, you can have your business and run it corp to corp, so you're tax efficient. all of that type of stuff is within your frame, and it makes you it gives you a stronger position where you don't have to kowtow to the kind of like the nanny state or the nanny corporation, because you do have to deal with that a lot these days. It's a little bit different, because I think even back in you guys' days, there was this feeling that if you did a good job, the company would still have your back, which is gone.
True.
And going back to sort of Glenn's point or Mark's point about danger, I think that we're as a result of man not being man, we're starting to enter a very dangerous time. I mean, you see things like California where the electricity is going down, or like Jackson, Mississippi, where there's no water. Like all of these things are starting to have a real physical effect. So I think it's a self-correcting process, as it were. So we're going to have to really strap on our boots these days because they're going to need us again. They're going to need men,
Yeah, that's one reason why Andrew Tate's message sinks home, because they're starved for a glimpse into reality of what a masculine man is capable of. It essentially, he fills that gap that we need heroes. And we really don't see too many of them, particularly in media or movies. We have a few, but they're rare, and they don't exemplify something that we can all do. Some of them are superheroes that are beyond our reach. See, and something like an Andrew Tate, or Tristan Tate, Jay Waller, those are within your reach. Those are guys just like you, just like me. Well, maybe not me, but just like most guys, and then they can reach that pinnacle and do those things. And I think his message really resonates. I mean, it resonates in the hundreds of thousands. And once again, the most Googled name right now on the planet, because the power of masculinity and the truth behind it has been clouded for at least 2 decades openly in my lifetime. Before that, when I was growing up, it was still somewhat celebrated because of the successes that masculine men had in society and in corporations and founding all of these things. It was still kind of riding pretty high. But I'm sure if we had some of the other red pill guys on, they'd talk about hormonal birth control and what happened right there at the end of the 60s and 70s. A lot of things converge to really change the way society is formed and why men have the frame or conditioned to have frame they have today. Look what's coming down the pike with I won't get into it, but look what's coming down the pike with the World Economic Forum, and there's another shift coming. And of course, that also is going to fuel the popularity of someone like an Andrew Tate that's completely opposed to it. So
I think you need to clarify, like, not every man could be like you. I mean, you are the god of thunder. So I mean, guys, you could aspire to it, but you're going to be a lesser version of Thor. You got to live with that, okay?
I pick that up. I was trying to show some humility there, because Lauren's going to tell us a little story about humility in Japan and why it's so important to have humility in frame in as a strong man is to demonstrate your skills. Lauren, can you talk to us a little bit about humility and why that's important in frame?
I mean, in the seduction community, you always want girls to find out who you are. You don't want to brag like, hey, this is my Lambo sitting over there. Hey, this is my Ferrari. I make 6 figures. The moment you say that, you devalue yourself. And when you devalue yourself, you set yourself up for being taken advantage of. I'm more this, I'm more that. Like, no. The best thing is let other people speak about you. Let people speak about your good deeds. Actually, the best way, for me, I believe, the best way to emulate respect is, I got that from my sister. I have a story about this. When I was 30, I realized that I had a sister and a brother from the same parents because I was adopted away. And my sister, one day, she told me, like, wow, you didn't speak much to me, but I saw the respect that everybody around paid to you. And it made me respect you twice as much without you saying much. So that, let your good deeds speak for you. And this is particularly important in Japan, because in Japan has elevated humility as a cardinal value.
Mm-hmm. In their society, right?
It's very important, much more than brag. This is the exact opposite of what America does, because Americans are very good salesmen for themselves, where Japanese are very self-effacing. And the prerequisite for that is that actually people pick up on what you do. They pick up on your good deeds. They pick up on the work that you do, and this gets picked up and this gets relayed around you, and this is what builds your credibility. Whereas Americans, in the eyes of Japanese people, are the other way around. Like, the exceptional salesmen at what they do, even though what they do is like, that's it. So it's not much but the self-aggrandizement is good.
Yeah, I think we've been conditioned that way for sure here, because we're that too long didn't read generation, right? Where we just want those little blurps. So it's self-promotion. What does Rolo say right now? Is it's brand management, right? It's that 30 seconds. Look at me. We're going to talk about that in conflict, because you'll see that humility is basically out the window with the way certain things are conflicted now. We've kind of lost that as a virtue, or we've used it as a club to show weakness.
I want to piggyback on what Laurent was saying. We got these guys out here. They're like, I'm Alpha Chad, 420 lone wolf survivor. That's HUD's, other Instagram name. So if you guys want to follow him, like, you got these guys like super alpha. If you have to proclaim how alpha you are every time you walk in the room, you've just shown me how alpha you're not. Okay. If everybody is not telling me like, yo, this dude is the boss, like he's the real deal, but you're the only one proclaiming how alpha you are, you just showed me how alpha you're not. And same thing with boss babes. Oh my God, I'm a boss lady. I'm a boss chick. Look at this. I'm a boss. Okay, you just showed me how boss you're not, how dependent you really are on other people. And it's like, as Laurent was saying, let people speak for you. Let people speak for you. As Coco was saying, humility is sexier than boasting. When they have to find out who you really are, and they're like, oh my God, this person is really this, that to them is sexier. If you have to proclaim it, it's like trying to proclaim how sexy you are when you're not sexy. You just make yourself look uglier.
Yeah, Glenn, have you ever driven a Ferrari or like a Lamborghini McLaren? I'm sure you have, right?
Yeah.
It's always a guy in a Dodge Challenger pulling alongside you, going at like 130, and you're just going 50 or 60. You don't have to floor it. You know you can beat him. Everyone around you knows that you can beat him. If you're you want to have that sort of humility, where everyone just looks at you and they're like, "That's a McLaren." That's the difference, right? And that's a good analogy right there. Like the guys who are speeding away, they're driving a Dodge,
Yep. Although some of those Dodges souped up could do some dangerous things.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point about Andrew Tate again. A lot of people, his detractors, say he's arrogant and has no humility. I will actually say it's opposite, because, having talked to his friends in that circle and even looking at it, the reality of the situation is that if you look at how he beat the YouTube algorithm, is not because he did it. Yeah, sometimes he plays a character and he knows how to get things kind of sensational. He talks about what he has, but here's the thing. Is it boasting? No, he's often asked questions or making commentary about being asked those things. So he's not offering it up. If you pay attention, he's not offering up just to offer it up. There's usually a point, or there's somebody asking a question. And then the more important part about it is you have people in his group, much like the DragonShip group, that actually are demonstrating what he has achieved. And they did it through video, and they did it through Instagram. They did it for him. That's much more impactful. And you saw his exponential growth in just a matter of months. It looks to the opposition that canceled him like he did it. And certainly he has a strategy around it, but it was much, much more than him, a much wider audience that lifted him up into this. And honestly, I think it was the best thing ever. When you realize they did this to Alex Jones years ago, they canceled him. You realize that he doubled his income. Some of the people that have been canceled actually did better because of the canceling culture. I just wanted to point out that difference, is that if you really watch him, a lot of people will say he has no humility, this or that. But I would argue that he actually does. He's done the work. Therefore, he can demonstrate easily. Anyway, just a point I wanted to make. Hudge, you wanted to jump back real quick about self-employment because we're really focusing here on the work side before we jump into frame in conflict. So let's go back to frame at work, back to where Andre had really taken us.
Absolutely. I wanted to make this point after Sam was speaking about it. I don't know where everybody is from, but I know, at least for me in Pennsylvania, it's at-will employment. What at-will employment means is that at any point in time, your employer can fire you and they don't need a reason.
Right.
So if you look at it from that lens, if you treat your job the same way and you look at it like you can leave at any point in time, that completely shifts your mindset so that you start to actually stand up for yourself. Because when you think about some things we were talking about before, where you don't want to take days off, like you want to work hard, you want to provide for the family, and then you've got like your CEO who's going on trips and spending week-long vacations and doing whatever the heck he wants to do. You gotta think about it. You are the prize. If you are the prize and you treat your employer as an at-will employer, just use the same mindset. And Sam actually said something behind the scenes that I thought was pretty interesting. If you treat your job kind of like a relationship, you don't, with your relationship, you don't, any relationship as you're building it, you wouldn't move in with a girl after knowing her for a couple months, right? You need to take time to, properly vet her, make sure you guys are compatible, make sure that you guys are growing together before you do something like that. And you got to treat your job the same way. So until your job really does work with you and values you, and you have a boss that protects you, then you're just being an idiot.
I think it has some analogies too for like the blue collar world. I mean, we come from historically as men, like we're looking to follow a leader who's willing to put skin in the game and to lead from the front, right? So it's the same thing. Like in the blue collar world, if you have a boss who, like for Thor, like if he's not holding up safety standards, or he's telling you to do things that are not to your best interest or the interest, of the company, just to cut corners, then you're not gonna follow him until he could demonstrate his competency. And that's sort of what we're talking about. You want to make sure that your leadership is competent, not just following them because they have the title, the authority of being a leader. And that's kind of, in the corporate, if you take that analogy in the corporate world, make sure that they're trying to do things the correct way. They're trying to provide the right training. They're not going to throw you under the bus. And until that happens, like you said, you kind of suss it out. And if they don't, then just treat them like a short-term thing, or when you get a better opportunity, go follow that. I think we really crave a competent leadership who leads by example as men. Just
for sure. Laurent, you had something to add on that?
Sorry, yeah, 3 things I wanted to add on what Alex said. Thank you very much for what you said, Alex. Number 1, say less.
Yes.
In the corporate world, say less. The less you say, the more it speaks for you.
Yep.
That's number 1. Number 2, find a champion. Always look for a champion and a sponsor. And I'll tell you a personal story. I always believe that competence gets you promoted. Wrong. Because when they do the round I work in finance. You haven't worked in finance until you've been fired 3 times. Like, oh yeah, I work in finance. Oh man, you got just fired and then you moved on. Like, I got tapped on the shoulder like more times than I can count. Like, all right, get out. And then a couple of weeks ago, hey, get back in. Wait. Which one? Which? So, so find a sponsor. The reason for this is when you find a sponsor, when you do the rounds to 5 people, you're just a name in the list. And if you have a sponsor, somebody who just pronounces your name, who can vouch for you, this is how you get promoted. So always look for a sponsor. Always look for somebody who will champion your name. And number 3, I think it was last week or the week before, I had a dinner and then there was a feminist and said, oh, the glass ceiling. And I looked at her like, nah, I don't believe in glass ceiling, but I believe in lazy girls. So here we go. So yeah, but I want equal opportunity. Yeah, sure, you get your equal opportunity. Equal opportunity. Get your ass 80 hours a week in the job. Sacrifice your family. If you don't show up at work on Saturday, don't bother showing up on Sunday. This is your equal opportunity. So do you really believe in glass ceiling, baby girl? Sacrifice everything. Oh, but I want to change this. This is what losers say. You want to change the rules because you can't fight fair.
Yep.
So get your ass in the ring, sacrifice everything, and spend half a day taking off the knives in your back and get going because there's another tomorrow. So I don't believe in glass ceiling. Does it make any sense?
Yes, of course. I'm so glad you bring this up because now we're getting to the practical side. And I'll finish this roundtable on the work before we enter conflict on the practicalities. I have a few things to give our viewers to be practical about achieving frame at work and achieving what you want. Now, here's the thing. All entrepreneurs start out working for somebody else, and then they move into different streams of income, whatnot. But what you have to do is you have to follow a few simple things. We'll start out with guys that are young, guys in your 20s. The first thing you need to do is show up early, stay late. Pretty straightforward. That works, definitely. The second thing you need to do is, once you start getting a skill, you want to, just like Lawrence said, always say less than is necessary. You'll dig yourself a hole. You ever hear the term, give yourself enough rope? What will you do with it? You'll hang yourself, right? So do that. The second thing is find mentors for sure, and then never outshine the master. It's right from the 48 laws of power. These are things that you will use to your own ends. Basically, you're going to become very solipsistic at work in order to hold frame and be successful. Make yourself indispensable to those around you, including peers. In fact, more so to peers. Why would you do that and not the boss? You're not a brown noser, although maybe you are. But if you're indispensable to your peers, they will defend you when the chips are down because they rely upon you. This is good shit. And you really need to understand. Most people don't understand that. To make yourself indispensable to peers goes against the common belief today that in order to get ahead, you have to point out others' weaknesses and problems to make yourself look good. This is actually the opposite. And what this actually does is makes you appear to be a natural leader. You will be given opportunities, and opportunities will be open just for you. Don't isolate yourself either. Okay? It's very important. And as you learn this, you'll start to master the art of timing. You'll see those opportunities come to you. Another thing is when you're first starting out, at first, pretend to be like them. Okay? Fit into the crowd only so far as that you can acquire power within that structure so that you can use it to your own ends. This sounds very, very evil. It is not. It's very self-serving. And guess what? If you're going to be a great one or a god amongst men, you need to be somewhat self-serving in order to achieve in life the ability to exercise power in your own life. And when you do that, you lift others up. That's the best thing you could do to help people and to be charitable people, is to acquire more power and then use it to help them. So those are just a couple things. And if you are starting out and you're very young, I would say by the time you're 25, you should save at least 6 months worth of salary in the bank. That's right. You need to be able to make it for 6 months. By the time you're 30, you better have a year's salary. And HUDs, what's a year's salary to you right now? It's 100 grand, isn't it? Yeah.
A little bit more than that, but yeah.
Well, yeah. Okay. 100, but at least,
Mm-hmm.
and that's disposable cash. That's not wrapped up in crypto. That is sitting there. Why is it sitting there? It's the bare minimum for you to acquire the mindset we were talking about. And specifically, I pointed you out, HUDs, because that was the mindset you're talking about. You're there at your leisure for that company, and you're benefiting them. And you should. If you're showing up early and you're staying late, you are a benefit to them. But you also have the mindset of, hey, guys, this just isn't spinning my way. I'm going to have to go. And I've seen this at work too. Oh, well, why do you have to go? Well, I'm getting an offer here and I need more time here to take care of this. Oh, we can have flexible hours for you. No problem. I've seen it happen just that fast. Just because you have frame at work and you have the means to exercise and use that frame. So that's my practical side of frame at work. Let's do a quick roundtable on it. We'll start with you, HUDs. Practical advice for frame at work.
No, that's pretty good. I mean, the practical advice I have to say is that at will employment mindset. Thinking about it the same way, that you can get rid of them as soon as they can get rid of you, or as easily as they can get rid of you. And once you truly adopt that and you're doing other things, you are opening other businesses, doing other things on the side, it just gets to the point where work becomes like an actual corporate job, just becomes a hobby instead of actually like, do you really need it? It just keeps you busy. So that's what I have to say is think of it in the same way. Think about on paper when you're signing the contract and getting on with the company and it's at will, think of it the same way, that you have the same standards. Have the same standards for them that you have, or have the same standards for yourself that they have for themselves.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Lauren, you got anything to add to that? You just gave the practical advice.
Yeah, I mean, what I came to realize a bit too late is that actually I was raised in loyalty for the job, and it's not a career; it's just a job. So somebody will come and tap on your shoulder. So like we have this idea in the red pill of spinning plates. Have the same mentality with your job. The minute you start working, keep networking, keep networking, keep it fresh, keep it fresh. It doesn't mean like jump on the next job as a mercenary, but if you have this mentality of it will keep it fresh. It will keep the company on its toes. You don't have to flaunt it, but always keep a network of people. This is actually how you increase your value, because you keep networking, you keep talking to people, and when the opportunity presents itself, then you'll be either jumping ship or you'll be promoted or something will show up. But never be monogamous with your job, because love is not a one-way street. Don't love your job more than the job loves you. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Mark Daniels, how about some practical advice at frame at work, man?
Very important for the leader to hold frame, and kind of like I think it was Hudge or was it Andre talking about how you have to set the example as a leader. It's not about being a boss so much. It's about leading by example. And when no one else will do what needs to be done, the leader has to do it. And you have to be willing to do it. I know my employees, sometimes I'll be out doing other things and I'm not working on the job. And of course, two of them are my kids, but they'll be giving me a hard time about not working. I said, I'm working when you're not working to keep you working. So you got to keep things going, and you got to be willing, as being self-employed or an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to do what other people won't do to have what other people don't have. And that's what I do. I'll be working on the weekends. I'll get a call. Like the other day, I got a message the other night, I don't know, 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening sometime. And this penthouse I fixed down in St. Louis, they had stains again on the ceiling. So people will sometimes envy the boss, or they think, God, look, he's got a mate. He can go here. He can take off and go to the Bahamas or the Caribbean or Colombia or wherever. But I'm the guy sitting there at 9 enjoying my evening who gets the call from the client or the message from the client, and that has to deal with that anytime. It doesn't matter if it's Saturday, Sunday, in the evening, whenever it is. I may wake up to a message like that. But I'm willing to do that to be able to have the freedom that I have. Now, I believe everybody's self-employed, even if you work directly for someone else. And I think that's the attitude you should have, because then you do hold frame, even if you do have a boss. But you can't become so dependent on a job. Just like me, I can't become so dependent on, let's say, a contractor that's a client. I've done that in the past, to where I feel like I'm working for them and my income is dependent on that one person. That's why I try to remain free. I don't stay with any specific building contractors, because you get tied in there and they get to where they're controlling the frame. They're actually controlling it. Hey, we need you here Monday morning. We got to get this done. We got an inspection at noon or whatever. And I've done that years ago, and I don't like that, because that's not independence. You become dependent on them for that check, and you think if you don't have their work, you don't have an income, which can be true if you've been doing that for several years. So I'm not tied into anyone like that. But that independence has to begin within you, knowing that no matter what happens, things are going to work out. And also, you have to set an example of frame. When everything goes to hell at work, you can't fall apart. You have to keep your cool, stay calm, tell people what they need to do. Like, let's say somebody breaks a machine or something goes through a window or drops a gallon of paint on someone's brand new carpet. The worst thing you can do is get excited, because then they don't know what to do. You just have to stay calm and take care of it, and it works out. But there's really a lot of responsibility that the leader has, that the employees, if you have the mentality of an employee, they don't really understand. So, and you have to understand that as the leader, as the boss, if you want to use that term, because they're looking at things from a completely different perspective than you are. To you as the leader, what difference does it make if one guy is doing more work than the other? It doesn't matter. But if you're the two employees, you don't want to pick up the slack for that other guy. So you have to keep these things in mind and keep an eye on those things to keep everybody working together smoothly, because not every personality mixes well. You could have two great workers, put them together, and they're terrible. They're both worse together than they are apart. You can have two employees that are pretty good, put them together, and they're the best. So these are all dynamics in the workplace that as a leader, you have to be aware of and keep frames, so to speak, on that.
Oh, such great practical advice. And that not only goes for leadership qualities, but like we had mentioned earlier about your peers, giving them the credit, doing those things, becoming indispensable. You'll find exactly the same thing amongst that peer group. It's amazing how many people don't, and they go against each other in a small peer group. Where I see, peer groups getting so tight is in that platoon level, or like the crew level. It's tight. It used to be. Now, sometimes it isn't, but I wish it was. I think we're headed back there. But yeah, that's really important,
But
Thanks.
we do excellent work, but I don't do it all. Without my employees, I don't do that. And if someone tells me, if they say I did a good job, I pass it on because of my employees. I'm only as good as my worst employee. So they learn from me, and they copy what I do. Not so much what I say, they watch what I do. And that's the important thing we have to remember. People are going to watch what you do. And now, if your words are congruent with your actions, that's great, even better. But if they're not, then your credibility to your employees or to your clients, as far as that goes, they pick up on that. I mean, you may not say it, but when I go to bid a job, people trust me because I'm trustworthy. I don't tell them that I'm trustworthy. I don't say it. They can pick those things up. I don't know how they do it, but they do it.
I got one thing I wanted to say that I just find funny. Hope you get a kick out of it. So I thought back to the Queen died on Thursday. I thought back to when we had when Trump won the election, and they had Mental Health Day. And I remember the girl I was like dating at the time. She was like, "Yeah, my boss like locked himself in the office and didn't come out all day long." It's like, how do you deal with conflict? How do you deal with something that I guess the world is burning down? And so I was texting somebody from work, and I was like, Queen died. For my mental health, I need to go home. I'm sorry. And I'm just like joking about it because it's absolutely ridiculous.
It is.
Like,
we're gonna get to frame and conflict, but it is pretty ridiculous how far people go. That's that work-life balance again being used as a weapon now. Or an excuse.
It's so silly because like truly like that is not even that's not something blowing up. That's not a client canceling a job. It's not a big problem when he was elected president. Yet right. I heard that across the board in the United States of having a day off for mental health for everybody. Really?
The power of fear. It's quite a motivator, just like anger is a motivator too. We're going to do a show on motivations and how to channel emotions. I can't wait. We'll do something like that. But that's a good point, Huds. Let's finish the quick thought on work, because I want to get into conflict and framing conflict because there's so much to do here, and we want to get to that. So I'm gonna have Andre do it, and then I'll see if Glenn has anything to add at work, and we'll get right into framing conflict.
I really like what Laurent and Mark said, and Laurent, you're gonna love this. I subcontracted under another faux finisher. I think in 2005, and I had to run a crew because I took ownership of the job. I didn't get paid to run a crew. I just got paid my hourly, but I had to manage 6 other female faux finishers. Oh. These are artists, so imagine. and yes, all the neurosis and their neurotic, whatever. And what I did know is they respected me very quickly, where they didn't respect other men on the job site or being a artist and a faux finisher. And I kept I kept them. I played to all their strengths. I played to the owner's strength. I said, don't show up. They're not gonna. They're gonna look at two heads instead of a single head. There can only be one head on a serpent, and that's the way it should be. And then he's like, all right, great. You want the ball? He left, and then all the women respected me, and then also placed them what worked best on the job. And then I supported all of them. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I called them out on stuff which they liked. What was ironic, I was afraid to do it, but I did it. And guess what? Like you guys are saying, is I made everybody feel good about what they were doing, and then I supported them. Now I don't mean that in a woo-woo way. I mean that as an artist. And Laurent, or you get into artwork, or Mark, when you're getting people dealing with paint and fumes and all that, it can get very dicey quick. And Mark, I know you know what I'm talking about, especially when you're dealing with oil base and paint thinners and all that, and people get wonky. I always had lots of chocolate, candy, and meat tacos or meat and bread all the time, because that's I'm hungry, eat. You need caffeine, eat. You need something sweet, because what chocolate does to the brain, it's the dopamine addiction. So guess what? They saw me as the guy who provided what? Coffee, chocolate, and meat. I didn't have problems. I did not have problems at all. I had no problem. We always got out about an hour to an hour and a half every single day early, because they wanted to, but I set up the environment. I set the frame. Everybody was going to be happy. Everybody was going to have caffeine. Everybody was going to have chocolate. And everybody was going to have meat and bread. And they loved me for it.
Yeah, a great leader is a servant. That's what people don't understand.
Yeah,
So
I love that. That's all. Yeah, fuck yeah. 1,000%, Mark. 1,000%.
All right, Glenn, before we get into conflict and frame, you have anything more to add about frame at work? Any practical advice?
Yes, I'm going to get a little biblical on you. Here we go. Mark just mentioned something very, very profound. In the Bible, Jesus says, the first will be last and the last will be first. Meaning that if you want to lead, you have to learn first to be a servant. You have to have a servant's heart. You can't lead without being a servant. And that's very true. The other thing I'm going to say is, like, you could be a leader, but not the leader. Okay, King David was a leader amongst men before he was the leader. He ruled under King Saul. And they were chanting. Saul has killed thousands of men. And then they were chanting, but David had killed tens of thousands. And his heart was still, as much as success he had, his heart was still to serve who was leading him. And that you could be a leader and not be the leader. You just have to be the solution to the problem. And you want to level up, and I don't care what industry you're in. Whatever industry you're in, as long as you are the solution to the problem, you have made yourself so indisposable. You made yourself so valuable, knowing that, we could go to Mark anytime we have an issue, or we could go to HUD's every time we have an issue, because he comes up with solutions. You don't have to be the top dog. You could just be the problem solver. And then, you know what? In society now, we don't have enough problem solvers. We have a bunch of problem talkers. People just pointing and talking about the problem, and nobody coming up with a solution. Nobody having the balls to bring out a solution. So if you really want to step up, be the solution.
Or those same people, when you come up with the solution to the problem, point at you and say, you didn't do it right, Glenn. You didn't do it right, which brings us into frame and conflict. Glenn.
Oh, here we go.
We're going to talk about this. I want to talk about this. I want to frame what we're going to do now, because it's important that even frame of work, you're going to run into conflict, okay? So when you run into conflict, I want to talk about a couple of things that are really important. Here on the Dragon Ship, we do believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. we really strive to not do reactionary videos that tear people down, but build people up. And I don't want to tear things down, but I'll tell you what we will do. We will speak the truth and let the chips fall where they may. There is a detractor that's been very active amongst a few of the red pill praxeology and claiming that it is extremely harmful to men, if not outright dangerous, and has sent open challenges to people that have knowledge in this space, and in particular, men who have actually saved men from suicide and have thousands of recommendations, and men who have improved their lives and thereby improved the lives of all of those around them, being shown or at least accused of being false and it's not true, strictly for something I like to call clout jacking. There's always the individual that you run into that's done everything, been everywhere. We used to see it outside of the internet when you go to the guy at the bar who flew the space shuttle, was assigned to a Nike Ajax nuclear missile site. In addition, he's also the finest attorney that ever, tried a case in court. And for every time you'd say, oh yeah, so you flew the shuttle in 86 and you knew so-and-so. Oh yeah, but they were sick that day, so I didn't get to meet them. They had an excuse for everything. Circular arguments, boisterous, moving them around, and it was all a plea for attention. Well, we're going to look at a debate that Glenn did with Rae Wilder, one of the proponents that really has attacked Rollo Tomasi's work. And Rollo Tomasi's work is really fundamental. We highly respect it here, and he's a friend of the show. And not because of that, but because what he has done is he's put the truth out there. I mean, I knew half of everything he put together. I'd never formulated or connected the dots in the way he did. But when I read that book in December 2013, I looked around, I said, it makes sense. I get it. And I appreciated it. Did I hate women? Absolutely not. This man claims that if you read Rollo Tomasi's Rational Male, that you will hate women. And therefore, if you're a young man and you hate women, you will cause violence. At least that is the premise of his attack. In reality, it's called clout jacking. He's literally trying to create controversy in order to gain views. He's tearing somebody down, pointing these things out to be sensational. And I equate it to exactly the same reason all human beings, when they pass an accident site, they slow down and they have to look. You've seen it on the highway. Everybody has to stop and look. Essentially, he is the accident. And he did, I will give him the respect to say that he would debate these things. Now, listening to him and how he speaks and the way he debates is not really a debate, since he likes to just, cut up his own videos and make fancy thumbnails on why he's so intelligent and intellectual that he's able to, define and destroy 20 years worth of work that's helped people in just a matter of a month or two without any research whatsoever, and then claim that he's using pure logic. Well, let's talk about this argument before I get into it. I'm going to bring the panel back up because I want to talk about this guy, Rae Wilder. We're going to see some clips about a debate in which solipsism was debated and Rollo Tomasi's work. Now, the style you're going to see here for the entire debate is essentially logical fallacies being repeated over and over, which invalidate the arguments and offer no evidence. And I'm going to read through some of the fallacies I want you to pay attention to, because this particular man will use logical fallacies in his debate style, which isn't really debate. It's just a matter of bombastic argument with no real means in it other than to attract viewers. And then he will turn around and say, well, you're using a logical fallacy. I'm using pure logic. Well, he likes to use something like black and white, which is a logical fallacy. That's where two alternative states are presented, as the only possibilities in a fact in order for him to make an argument. He also likes to beg the question, which is a circular argument in which the conclusion is included in the premise. So whatever you answer, he'll ask a question with a question. Always, always, always. And then he uses ambiguity, which is another one, right? and anecdotal. He used personal experience as an isolated example instead of a valid argument, especially to dismiss any statistics that are presented. You'll see this in the debate, and Glenn so eloquently does dismantle this argument. And then, of course, he appeals to authority or assumed authority, in which case, he will claim that solipsism doesn't exist and it's a made up thing. And then, of course, we find out that it is actually not. You'll see that he actually kind of fails on that if you watch the video that Glenn has on Glenn Lawrence with him and Kevin Rae Wilder. So he even does the genetic, logical fallacy. We're judging something good or bad that's based on where it comes from or who it comes from in his argument. I think you're going to see a clip of that as well. He also uses personal incredulity in his case. And then he does, of course, the loaded question and special pleading, which is always, you'll see here, is moving the goalpost to create exceptions when the claim is shown to be false. Glenn, you pointed out a bunch of false claims and what happened to the goalpost. Well, they didn't really count there because, when the sun was in the second phase of the third moon, it wasn't written correctly on the paper, so therefore it's invalid. You'll see quite a bit of that. And then also the burden of proof, saying that the burden of proof lies with the person making the claim with someone else to disprove. And of course, Rollo has a body of work that is second to none. And the man that's talking is doing it just to, essentially create a straw man argument to get himself more views so that he can promote whatever it is he promotes. And I got to say, the guy has some charisma because he sucked people into this with this. He had some charisma and he has the gift of gab. Wouldn't you agree, Glenn?
I mean, the man could talk.
Yeah.
I mean, he definitely has the ability to be persuasive.
Mm-hmm.
The problem now, I didn't just debate him. I've debated Alex from Playing with Fire as well, another huge Rollo detractor. And let me explain why I even took it upon myself to debate these guys.
Now the reason we're even going there, Glenn, before I get started, is the conflict. You took on conflict that these guys created, and you held your frame. And that's really, I want everybody to pay attention to that. Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, Rollo's work was very profound for me when I got zeroed out. And so when I hear somebody talking about somebody's work that literally has impacted my life in a positive way, and I have the receipts to prove it. I mean, you see how sexy Coco is in the chat. Like, a guy that didn't have frame, that didn't learn from Rollo's work, would never have been able to rebound from something as horrible as a divorce and losing children, and be able to still feel like, oh, it's okay to be with women. Like, I don't hate women. Like, I got one of the sexiest girls in the game. Like, so to me, it's like, no, his work improved my life, helped me to see things the way they are, and be able to operate with this new mindset and new information and how to navigate life. Now, when these guys come out and they're talking about this work is trash, and I've literally seen how his work has improved my life, not just my life, but other men that I have met's life, and they don't have a body of work, I'm going to challenge them. I'm going to say, okay, where's your receipts? Where's your facts? Where's your evidence? And yeah, that's what we got going on here. I mean, we have a couple clips to show you guys, both from me and Alex, and then me and Kevin Rae, and you can see the difference.
So that would make sense when you're in conflict and it's still not to the point where fisticuffs are up or it's a shut door, is to stay calm and stoic and look at the facts and start to remove emotion from the case and holding your frame. And that would be, what are the facts? What is obviously show me some anecdotal evidence and then show me the actual evidence to go with it so that we can reach an empirical conclusion based upon that. And in some cases, people will understand where you're coming from, and you'll actually come away from conflict with an understanding where you can actually become friends or even work together. The conflict is actually beneficial. So I wanted to say that before. I'm not sure this ended up that way at all, because it seemed as though his argument is intractable because he has actually invested his ego into this, which is dangerous. And when you have conflict and you're holding frame, there is a fine line in which you don't want your ego fully invested at any moment in time. When you do that, the next step, when it's not resolved for men, let's just call it like it is some kind of violence to resolve. That's how we do it. So, you do want to keep that in mind when you're in conflict. Did I kind of encapsulate, the overall gist here when we're looking at this? Now, when we get to these clips, Glenn did extremely well because, honestly, Rollo should never debate anybody like this or even the playing with fire guy, because there's really nothing to debate. He's talking about a praxeology that was formed over many decades, and it's not just him. He just connected dots and correlated these things about, human, sexual dynamics. Now, he's come up with the 9 iron rules, which we're going to come up here and show real life examples in future episodes, which, those things are fundamental things that are very important. And there's reasons they're put out like that. But Rollo doesn't really give prescriptions per se, as he gives information that men can put the prescriptions together for themselves. Essentially gives you a toolbox and you can pick and choose. And it's, if some of the tools can be deemed as dangerous, like a chainsaw that doesn't have a guard on it, we'll put the damn guard on it. Okay. I think this guy really misses the point because of his ego and because of there is an underlying motive here. Because I've seen other videos and there's a lot of content creators out there that just want to tear people down to get views. That does work. I mean, what do they say about news media? If it bleeds, it leads. And we all know there are certain bells that you can ring, be it at work or in person, that once it's rung, they can't be unrung. Anybody hear of anybody at work that got accused of sexual assault or harassment, even if it was untrue?
Guilty until proven innocent.
The bell still got rung, didn't it? The bell still rung. Everybody heard it. You can't unring it. I think this guy definitely plays in that arena. And then his ego got the better of him on this first clip, and he tried to use the logical fallacy that we talked about earlier of genetics and black and white. Shall we play that clip? And you want to comment on it, Glenn?
Let's just go and play, and then if I have something to say, I'll add to
let's
it.
take a look at it, man. Here we go.
This is important. What if I asked you this then? We can't be mad at black people for going around and shooting and stabbing people. It's just in their very nature. Is that racist? Yes or no?
Well, no. I mean that is racist.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're conflating two different things.
No, they're both under the umbrella of bigotry. They're both bigoted statements because you're ascribing.
It depends on the stats. It literally depends on the stats. Like, you're saying you have statistics to support that, like all black people are running around stabbing people?
No. Do you have statistics?
Okay, but we have statistics
that all women are
hypergamous?
So solipsistic to the point, where they'll leave their man for a higher quality man every time.
Let's pause it right there. You're taking things absolute. I don't take his work as he's saying that anything's absolute.
No. That's Rollo's problem. The problem I have with Rollo
Rollo doesn't take anything I've said that this is always going to happen. It's like saying this.
Yes, he did.
Does every dog
this earlier?
Does every dog have teeth? Does every dog have teeth?
Almost all of them, unless somebody pulled their teeth out.
Okay, so when dogs are born, they all have teeth.
I think I don't know, maybe if they're like human children. I don't even know if human children have teeth when they're born. I don't know. Where are you going with this?
So if all dogs have teeth, does that mean all dogs are going to bite you?
No.
Okay, same thing with hypergamy. Same thing with solipsism. Just because they have the capability of doing it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to act on it. It means that they can't
just
act on it.
Just because black people are way more likely to stab you doesn't mean that they're going to do it. Is that still racist?
Who's saying anything about black people stabbing you?
No, what I'm saying is, hold on, either you're being deliberately obtuse or you just don't understand what I'm saying here. Logically speaking, but if we're being logically consistent, these two exact things add up. If I make the assumption and I say, oh, well, Black people are inherently more likely to stab and rob people, therefore we should be more forgiving of them when they do it, as opposed to white people. It's bad to say that, and it's racist to say that. You
No,
agree,
you're
reframing.
You are trying to reframe this. You're trying to reframe this.
I'm not trying to reframe anything.
Yes, you are. You are.
You are. You know that you got here, and this is why you're trying to stop it, right? So
I don't. You can keep going. You can keep going, but you haven't got, bro. You can't get me on this.
Okay, but that's
because
fine.
you're reframing.
If you don't think you got, let me finish what I'm about to say.
Say what you need to say.
Okay, so I'll restart from the beginning. If you say that, oh, we can't be mad at Black people because it is in their nature to rob and steal, and therefore when they rob and steal, we need to forgive them. If that is bad, that is the same equivalent logically as saying, oh, women, because of their solipsistic hypergamous nature, when they leave a man for a higher quality man, we can't be mad at them because that's just who they are. That's just in their nature. Logically, those two things are the same. If you think one is bad because you're just assuming that all Black people are a certain way, and then this one, you're just assuming all women are the same way, those are both bigoted statements. Yes or no?
No, that's a judgment call.
Come on, bro. You know because you got, which is why it's like, come on, man. This is why, guys. This is why you don't want to become an ideologue, right? Because
first
then
of all,
you start to.
That's a logical fallacy. Let's just be honest.
It's not a logical. I literally laid out for you how they're logical.
Okay, I got a comment here, Glenn. Just for a second, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's obviously trying to control it, but this is all based on the fact that he did not believe solipsism existed at all in females. He thought it was the same. And then he even went so far as to say, did he not, that it did not exist in APA, which is American Psychological Association articles or whatever, you know, their manuals or their association denies solipsism. Yet there is a disorder or a syndrome that actually is present, which is solipsistic exemplification syndrome.
It's solipsistic syndrome. Solipsistic
right.
syndrome.
So he wanted to say that, and then when you called him on it and he took the loss on it, this was his response, right? It was to make up this argument that because we say female solipsism exists. Now, solipsism, just for the audience to catch them up, Glenn, help me with this.
Yeah.
Female solipsism or regular solipsism is essentially a philosophical point that is made about self-interest. And it just so happens that it suits female nature extremely well in the fact that they are more at risk for survival because of pregnancy, the high cost of pregnancy, raising children, all of those things, being weaker sex, not built for combat, that they are solipsistic in nature to a degree that is larger than in men when it comes to female sexual or human sexual dynamics. And it describes it. So it's a descriptor, which he says does not exist and is dangerous to quantify. And his argument is it's the same thing as saying, you know, for us, when we say women have this and we can't get after them for it, I don't think anybody is. He's the only one that is. Is that correct? By using this analogy.
What he's trying to do, and solipsism is just a self-interest.
Right.
Like you think of self first. So when you think about a life or death situation, let's think of an active shooter. Here's a perfect example. In an active shooter scenario, you have guys putting themselves in between the shooter and women, right? That's just natural. It's male instinct. That's an innate reaction that men have. An innate reaction that women have is to get behind the guy and not get shot. Like, why? And we do this because women are the incubators of life. We know that. We know that women produce the next offspring. So, you know, Danny, that's funny. He's actually 6'3", so he's rather tall. He's a rather tall retard. But so he tried to say like, oh, so you're saying that women are innately solipsistic is like saying that Black people are innately going to stab you. And I'm like, well, where's your statistics? Because we have statistics on women acting innately solipsistic. We could prove that. We could show evidence of this behavior. We don't. You know, I was like, "Where's your statistics to support that black people are going to go around stabbing you? What statistics do you have?" And he doesn't have any. And that's where his argument is just so flawed. It's like it's not the same thing. Just because you could rationally make it sound right or legit doesn't mean it's the same thing, because one thing is supported by facts and statistics and the other thing is supported by your opinion.
Right.
And you do
this
that
is the
next.
epitome of a logical fallacy. And then he loses control. So it almost seems like he knows. So he says he gotcha just to shut you down. And then he says, well, you know, if you let me talk, if you don't think that I got you, which, you know, he's really putting the stretch on. And obviously he has the gift of gab and he's doing this to shift it. Then it becomes not only ad hominem, but it becomes a straw man, for which he always is accusing everybody else of doing, when this is a pretty poor way for him to debate. And what I'm saying is your frame here is good. You take it, you listen to it, you're not getting too emotional. You're holding that frame. In this case, it's good. You know, I was surprised he continued on the same path once you put him down on female solipsism, because really as a descriptor, it's not a yes or no answer. He keeps wanting to say yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. It's
because
not
that's what he based his whole argument on. That's everything. He needs to win on solipsism because the rest of his argument crumbles.
It does collapse. He used it as a foundation and didn't even find out what it was used for. I'm surprised he didn't really investigate it further on the blog posts that talk about it as a descriptor. It's not that we're coming up with, even if we came up with it as a hypothesis, it's not really that. It's a descriptor of behavior types and sets that are very prevalent and provable, which is great. We're using a descriptor word that fits very nicely. How is that, you know, basis for an entire book being called trash and actually damaging and dangerous? He didn't even do the research to go further. I think this is probably why he wanted to talk so long, was to wear you down. And this is part of conflict, is the wearing down part. You know, is wear you down and take you further and further and further away from the original point, which actually made him look very, very bad. And by the way, we don't use retard word here. F-tard is perfectly acceptable. So let's just use F-tard instead. Okay. Shall we continue?
We shall.
All right, here we go.
Consistent with one another.
No, they're not consistent, because
you want me to explain to you why it's logically
No, let me
consistent
explain. Let me explain to why it's bullshit. Okay, because one, you don't have stats that saying all black people are going to stab people. We have plenty of examples of evidence that prove hypergamy, that prove women have act hypergamous. Okay, but you don't have the stats. That's why I'm saying it's a bullshit hypothetical.
Oh,
okay.
No, there's stats to show that more people commit crimes in the U.S. That more black people commit crimes in the U.S. than any other.
Here we go.
Whoa! I gotta stop that. Why did he pick this? Because this is
so bad.
Pretty bad.
This is horrible part for him.
Well, here's the thing. Even if he's looking at per capita, when you look at per capita as far as crime, there's a lot of factors there that are variable. And if you start to spread that out worldwide, it starts to disappear. It's done on purpose by a lot of people to point out some pretty racist shit, you know.
That just makes us wonder, does he have a problem with black people? I don't know. But, you know, I do point that out here as we continue.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and play it. Just play it.
Right.
That in itself.
That's not accurate. There's more black people that commit crimes against black people. Yes. If you're going to quote the FBI, do it right, because I know the FBI statistics on this. All right. If you're going to quote these things.
Then? In terms of percentage,
reframing,
when it comes to each race, blacks have a higher percentage of criminals among their own race than any other race. That is factually true.
I would say black people have been convicted more than any other race. Not necessarily they committed crimes.
Now,
okay, so this is
that was fucking dope. I loved that, Glenn. No, black people have been convicted more because they're targeted for their crimes. more often than white people. And that's why inherently his entire argument and the stance he's taking was somewhat racist.
Yeah, somewhat.
No, absolutely racist.
I'm surprised at him using that argument. I think he was stretching for an argument and wanted to be as impactful as possible. Really kind of trapped himself hard.
If I may, the reason why he's doing this is where he's lost.
Yeah.
That's the reason why he's doubled down, because when he saw this, if you go back on the clip, and you don't have to, there's a point where he takes this deep breath in and out, and that's when you're trying to brush off the stress. Like, so if you're in a fight, you're like trying to hype up and all. So he's looking like, oh crap, here we go, because he's like, I can't. So all he could do is he already went down his train of thought. He has to be right, because remember, part of what he says, and I just noticed this just in this segment, where he has to have unfortunately his like meta program in his head in the world of hypnosis and psychology is I gotcha. That's the reason why he said that. That's the reason why later on, Glenn, when part of my notes is when you misread the word or whatever, and he jumped on you and you turned around and showed the words. Okay, you missed word, but he was like, man, if you're going to say in instead of the or versus it, I'm going to jump on you. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. He just has to. And what is that? It's a meta program or this higher program or functioning thing that he says, I've got to have you. That's the reason I'm smarter than you. You are better. That's the reason also later on when you say you have your theology degree or degree in religion or comparative studies, whatever it is, he's like, and you see him, he loses his state completely. He's like, oh crap. Because I guarantee you, he didn't think you had a degree. He doesn't respect you. He doesn't have you. He's like, oh crap. That's where he does the same body. That's where he loses state and he loses identity. That's the reason why he has to double down on this kind of this very odd and classless, raceless thing, because he doesn't want to be wrong. He does it in that because I got you. So now it's about his ego, his vanity, his pride, which is his identity. So by him being in that state of ego, vanity, and pride, he's losing his identity. That's the reason why he has to double down on it. That's why the narcissistic feed and the narcissistic need, so feed and need, is that he cannot be wrong because he already got you. Not that it's true, but in his head, he's like, oh shit, I got to double down, or whatever as again, what I call the unconscious response. So this is where he is literally sinking his own ship. That's the reason why it's a very classless and unneeded argument, because he's like, he already lost. That's why your whole thing with the teeth and the dog thing, he couldn't compete. He said, well, I have 4 boxes, beats your 4 boxes. I can say with the 4 boxes. He lost because of his vanity, ego, and pride through his narcissistic need and narcissistic feed. That's the reason why you're seeing this. Forget the content. And I know we're doing the subject matter, but where he lost is that I have lost, someone else got me, because how his program is, I gotcha. It didn't happen, and that's why he did what he did. So,
Andre, that's brilliant. You know, it dawned on me earlier, but you brought it back out on me. What it shows is a real lack of masculine maturity.
Yeah.
It's almost adolescent in its approach.
If I can, I know Rafe isn't here, so Rafe, forgive me. So we talked 2 days ago, and Rafe said this, is that it's very feminine.
Mm-hmm.
He was truly in his feminine energy. Oh, you got me. And be it male or female feminine energy, whatever you want to call it, don't care. But it was like, and that's why this argument is odd. It just, the teeth and the dog biting you and bringing up this race, whatever you want to call it, it's an odd thing because, and it does not match. It's the weight of the argument. It's not 4 boxes versus 4 boxes and ad hominem and logical fallacy. Dude, it's the weight of the argument.
And you'll see this in conflict a lot. Yeah, I see this in conflict a lot. Men and women having these kind of conversations. It just seems more prevalent, probably because I see more of it via social media, but in real life, sometimes I see younger people communicating like this. It's really, I don't know. Anyway, shall we continue?
Yeah, let's close it out.
Yep.
You're literally giving me a black and white fallacy, logical fallacy here.
No,
and it's not that.
I literally,
it is.
You can't call something a logical fallacy when then I just explain it to you logically. I literally broke it down logically for you. I said,
but you're trying to say that
and then there's these two things.
It's not a conflict. It's not. If I say this, like all dogs have teeth, right? Your conclusion will be, well, you're saying all dogs will bite you. Well, no, I'm not.
That's not what I'm saying.
I'm trying to tell you,
I'm
like,
not saying
it's
that.
not the same. It's not the same. Just because a woman could be
I totally agree.
just because a woman could be hypergamous and solipsistic doesn't mean she's always going to act on it. It means that she can. She has the capability of acting on it.
Yes.
So so when you read his work, how is this bad? How is it bad to understand that certain people could react this way?
How's it that all black people specifically might just stab you and shoot you?
Again, you're using an
I'm using logic. Oh no.
No, it's not a logic. It's not logic. You're not, because you're using
literally logic by definition.
No, it's not. You're using racism. You're trying to use a race.
Just saying it's logical, I will point out, doesn't make it so, and it makes it extremely, his masculinity is extremely mature here.
You're trying to use a racist, antidote for your argument.
KO. I will grant Glenn this. I think that was the first time I got in a way in any of these debates, because I have been undefeated in debates up to this point.
If I can, at the end, if you notice, I didn't realize that, but that's where he said, that's why I said his mindset, he has a program, is I've got to get you before you get me, or if I got you. So his premise is so again, I didn't even realize that. So it's what's cool when you go back and watch like Tom Brady or Joe Montana or Frazier or Ali or whatever, you go over these, or Tyson, you go over these great boxing matches, then you start to see these other pieces. So that end shows that the first thing after that, he got me.
Mm-hmm.
That's the gotcha. That's the I gotcha. So anyway, sorry.
So when I talk about frame in this argumentative or conflict scenario, you have to understand where they're coming from, but you have to stand firm in your position. If your position is sound, like, as he threw a lot of crap.
He did.
Trying to make his point. And my point was very, very, natural. It was just, this is what it is. This is how we could prove it. And you don't have any evidence to prove yours. I didn't have to explain as much. Like, okay, I used the example of dogs having teeth. That was it. That was the only example I used. How many times did he have to double down on his racist, rant to try to prove a point? Because he kept on moving the goalpost every time he did that. And mine stayed the same. My goalpost was right there. I didn't move my goalpost. My goalpost stayed right where it was. But and that's having frame. That's maintaining your frame. If you have to move your goalpost, then you do not have frame in your argument. You do not have frame in your debate. You don't have no frame in when your position is, if you have to constantly shift it down.
Yeah. And I realized after watching this, the thing about your frame is you came prepared. And that's what I'm going to say. When you have frame and conflict, is be prepared. There's nothing wrong with a tactical retreat, but be strategic. If you're prepared, you will do very well. And especially if you have mature masculinity, much as Glenn did, you'll notice that in the first, 20 minutes, you basically dismantled solipsism, for which he has based his entire argument on the rational male being a piece of trash, for which it absolutely is not. But that was his argument, and he did not do any of his own research. He didn't even look at why it was being used as a descriptor. He even so much as made assumptions that it was a new hypothesis not properly formulated, which it's not. And he assumed nobody was as well read, and definitely looked at you and made some assumptions that you wouldn't have come in that prepared. You dropped him like a big sack of potatoes, and then he went on these rabbit holes. He tried to take rabbit holes to basically chop up and come back to try to pull out some of his ego at the very end and say, look, I did okay. I did this. He did have to admit that you got him, and you really destroyed his argument right up front. And the rest of this was just kind of a feeble attempt to save and pick from the ashes the rest of his entire synopsis on the rational male and see if he could reassemble it at another point in time. Did I sum that up for you guys?
Oh yeah. I agree. And I definitely think when you'll see a contrast in the next clip from Playing with Fire. I mean, these guys are the two biggest, loudest voices out there right now screaming against the rational male. And you could just see their worldview, the way that they view things is toxic. And actually, Alex even admits that the way that he views things is toxic in this next clip.
Okay. And this is not our Alex. This is the guy that talks shit on Myron, isn't it?
Yes, him and Kevin Rae Wilder are in the cahoots together.
Guys, this is another. This is a cloutjacker for sure.
Alex lives around the corner from Myron. They see each other in person sometimes. It's funny.
Interesting. I mean, I know Myron personally. It's just he's a great dude. I mean, he's full of energy. He's a great guy. I just can't imagine why would you need to do that? I mean, the guy would give you the shirt off his back. I don't understand. Anyway, let's move forward.
Should always control the frame without making it seem like you're controlling the frame. This woman should always be in your frame. So this one, I would say I'm 50-50 on. You don't want the whole relationship to be just one giant frame now. That sounds like a fucking nightmare. Like, first of all, it's not going to be successful because there's going to be constant friction because you're constantly, playing these frame control wars. Like, imagine, your best friend who you're someone you take road trips with and you hang out with, and someone who you feel like you always have to control the frame. Otherwise, that friendship is going to end. That sounds like a fucking nightmare. So this one, I would say, is very largely bullshit. Do you have to disagree with that one?
Do you know what mental point of origin means? A mental point of origin basically saying like how you filter your decision. I'm my mental point of origin. So when I make a decision, when I'm getting ready for a role, my girlfriend, whether or not she likes the film or not, doesn't come across my mind as in the determining factor of what I'm going to do if I'm going to take that film. Let's say there's an actress that she doesn't like on this project. That's not going to stop me from working on this film. The whole frame of your life, the things that you want to do in your life, you have to be the mental point of origin. Okay, because a lot of guys fall into this happy wife, happy life mentality.
Yeah, I agree. That's fucked up.
Right? And that right there is their wife is controlling their frame. Their wife is their mental point of origin. And what it's saying is, no, guys, you need to be the mental point of origin of your own life. And you need to control your own frame. And whether or not your woman wants to be in your frame or not, that's her choice. But don't sacrifice your frame to please her, because in the long run, it's not going to suit her. And she's going to despise you for sacrificing your frame. And think about this. If you sacrifice your frame for a woman's going to look at that and be like, you know what? He really wasn't secure with himself. He really wasn't secure with his own frame, that he was so quick to sacrifice his frame for mine. And that one, if women like security, you're not going to see very much security in a man that sacrifices his frame like that. Does that make sense?
No, dude, I agree with everything you're saying. You don't want to have your relationship be a constant frame control battle, because that's just emotional turmoil.
You can't control their frame.
Well, the whole point of frame control is to put the girl in your frame.
I don't put my girl in my frame. A girl wants to be in my frame. That's the difference. You have to have, your frame has to be so tight that she rather sacrifice her frame to live in your frame. And it's not controlling the frame. You're just controlling your frame.
Exactly.
You can't control someone else's frame. You can't control someone else's actions. You can only control what you want in your life and what you allow in your life and what you won't allow in your life. And that's really what he's saying. He's like, always being controlled. Make sure that the things that are going on in your life are the things that you want and you allow. And it's not necessarily what somebody else dictates for you.
But there has to be in a relationship, there has to be some reasonable amount of compromise. Would you not agree?
I think there is to a degree, but there's not when it comes to your friend.
I've said several times throughout this podcast that I agree with you. What we are disagreeing on is how we interpreted that rule. You interpret it in a much more healthy, holistic way. I interpret it in a more toxic way. Like, always make sure that the girl is falling into your frame, that you're not accidentally falling into her frame. So we just interpreted the rule differently.
You said we interpreted differently, but you said you agree with everything that I said. So it's that maybe, hypothetically speaking, maybe applying that interpretation the way I did would probably be more healthy or beneficial to guys rather than the way that you interpret it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think you are really the best, you made the best, I guess, critiques in favor of all that I've ever heard.
All right. I got some things to say about this one. Glenn, I will say this about the whole situation. You know, you stepped into the arena, and I got to say this about Playing with Fire. He had a more mature view and willingness to listen. He had a much more mature masculine view, and he kind of deferred to your superior masculine view on this. That actually had a more. He was absolutely making big assumptions about people, about how people react, and he was reading into it almost as if he was influenced by somebody else on that particular role. That's my take on it. But he didn't have the fortitude to step into the arena. Both these guys did, and I gotta say respect for that. But I think that there's a big difference between those two guys, you know, in their approach to conflict. And you could tell that he definitely had massive respect for your frame, which that was a better example for sure, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I definitely think when I contrast the two debates, Alex was more willing to be educated and willing to learn, and he wasn't so set in his beliefs. You know, he was open-minded, which made the debate a lot easier. It made it more. I took that debate, not to say easier, but it made it more positive and beneficial at the end for men. They could be like, oh, okay, so he is having a different point of view. He could see the different point of view, and he could see the positive outcome from having this different point of view. With Kevin Rae, he was so set on his position, it
blinded him, gave him cognitive blindness. Mm-hmm.
And it made him look worse than it did make him look better.
Yeah. But you got some things to say. We want to wrap this up now, guys. So I appreciated what we just went through. I see the clock. We're starting to get close. We got a few more minutes left. Let's go ahead and comment on what we just saw with Alex, which I got to say, your frame there was very mature, and he recognized it and kind of, you know, almost like you had more influence than somebody else may have had on him. I think he's probably very influenceable.
Yeah. One thing I want to say on that is I think we've all experienced this. When you talk to somebody who maybe speaks a certain way or is from a different culture, you tend to adopt that culture. So like if you're talking with somebody in like a Southern twang, you'll start to kind of speak the same way because you're trying to connect with them. I think that the difference with Alex and Kevin, Alex he understood that Glenn is a force to be reckoned with, and he respected him. And so he came to a much more adult frame in the conversation, much more mature frame.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting where Kevin fights it for whatever reason. Whereas Alex can actually have the discussion. And that's why Alex is, quite honestly, I think that's why Alex is more successful. And he has had so many great people on his own podcast, and he's interviewed a lot of people. I think he just even had like Ross Jeffries the other day, which is,
I got to say, I've never heard of him before other than the name in conflict with my friend Myron, you know.
I believe he's having Tristan Tate on soon as well.
Maybe he is maturing. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. In fact, I would offer this to both those guys. Trauma visits us all. Tragedy and trauma, turns and twists that all affect our maturity. And when your maturity level rises, this brotherhood will welcome you and help you get through it. Everybody can change. And that's really what the red pill is all about, you know, that rising tide. And it's blind to every color, creed, or anything. If you're a man and you step on board the dragon ship, that rising tide is going to lift you up.
You know, one thing about these debates, like, these are good to have when they're in a very healthy environment because it's ironing sharpening iron.
Yep.
Look, you can't test your ideas or theories unless it's challenged. And you got to learn to take the loss when it comes and realize, and that's the difference, the contrast I see between the two debates. Alex took the loss when he saw it happen. And he admits, like, you know what? You have a more holistic approach to this. Man, in a way, I'm paraphrasing, but what I would say, if he was saying is like, I should adapt that view because it's a positive, more beneficial outlook. You know, and so to hear and to see the difference, you could see like, okay, one person debating Kevin, there was no benefit. He didn't see anything positive in it. He oh yeah, I got whatever. But for the viewers, these debates are positive in the sense of you're challenging ideas. Ideas have to be challenged. There's a scripture that says iron sharpens iron for a reason. For a reason. It makes you more durable. It makes you more solid. It makes you a force to be reckoned with. It makes you stronger. And so these debates can be very beneficial.
Yep.
And you can see the contrast in that in between the two debates.
Yep. I'm going to make a comment on my Viking son, Devon, out there on the Great Lakes, great ice fisherman there. He says that the Alex guy was all on the Rule Zero guys a year ago. Good to hear he can actually sit down with someone and talk ideas. I want to comment on this on a broader scope. With my superhuman godlike powers of observation, there's something I have observed about the red pill and the knowledge that's contained therein. And it is demonstrated, and I'm going to repeat it again. I might even make some clips in the future. You can see this over and over. I mean, how many times do you want to red pill somebody and you give them the information, particularly a woman, and it backfires on you? They don't want to hear that crap, and it's offensive. It has somewhat of it seems somewhat unflattering, these red pill truths on nature and how people behave for some reason. But I will say this, like Rollo had that conversation with Jedediah Biliu. The first conversation was very much debateful, like this debate we just saw. Very feminine, combative. She had feminine qualities, but she had that style that some women do. And it just had a lot of circular arguments in it. I didn't feel like it. I don't know. I assume, my experience has been, well, in my experience, well, I don't know anybody like that. How can you be true? Now, let that information soak for a while, much like maybe Alex here. It soaks. You think about it. You look at your social circle. The next conversation you had with Jedediah Bila was vastly different, as if, wow, now that I'm looking, I see exactly what Rollo was saying. Exactly what the red pill was offering. It may be presented in such a way that's unflattering and causes somewhat of a shock to our conditioned mind. But after you see it in application, you can kind of look at it. And if you're a normal person and say, yeah, I can actually see that. I hope that's what's happening with Alex. And then I hope Kevin will find that too and raise his maturity level. But we'll see. I see some things that make me very hesitant just because of history. But I noticed that even in my own life, I've seen some people come towards the red pill without me even pushing in that direction that would have completely disagreed and argued exactly in the same fashion about certain tenets of it just 2 years ago. Now we're into COVID. Things are very different. I'm woke, not that kind of woke, but, I'm not asleep anymore. And Andrew Tate said a few things and, now all of a sudden I kind of understand and my maturity level is different. So I'm hoping for that for those guys, Good job there, Glenn. Excellent frame. That was some good examples. I want to do some quick roundtable here, and I want to start with Mark. Mark's been silent. I'd like to get his comments on this, and then we'll wrap it up with everybody, okay?
Yeah, I was thinking of there's a word called lacuna. Have you ever heard of that? We have blind spots within us, and when you're talking, like Glenn was talking to that other guy, and then you talked about the second one that you showed. I don't remember what his name was. He was able to see after some time. If you believe something doesn't exist, or if you believe something is a certain way, you're actually blind, literally blind to the other reality that you don't believe in. You only, you only see what you believe. You don't believe what you see. So unless they've had some experience, or even if they have, but they haven't really consciously recognized it, you're never going to convince them of what it is. But once the seed is planted and they have the idea that it's a possibility, as long as they don't completely, contempt before investigation, then they're able to see, well, maybe this, like you said, Thor, they go back to their social circle, they have a few more experiences, and then it clicks. Well, this is what he's talking about. Now I see that happening. We're blind to many things in life, opportunities, different things. When I read Rollo's book several years back, what it did for me was explained why everything I did before I was 30 worked with women. I was quite the player. And then afterwards, I tried to be what society told us we need to be, the narrative, and that didn't work worth a shit. That took me years. And then when I read his book, then I understood why the player that I was, women loved me. And when I was the steady, honest, dependable guy, then it just they despised me after a period of years because I was too I was too consistent, too available, too there, too dependable, and those are all good traits we need. But as I said, but then like the red pill philosophy is somewhat like religion. Some people take it to an extreme and they can use it for their own gain and use it just to get over on women. And that's, of course, not what we want to do here, but it explains the nature of women so we can understand and actually give women what they want. And that's how I view all this.
Excellent. Where can we catch you next, Mark?
We're going to do this podcast tonight, and the topic was 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, and we'll be discussing the 16 Rules of Poon, I think.
Oh, that's one of my favorites. Hey, did you go and see my satire on that one?
No, I haven't. No.
Please go and do it. It's called it's The Cure for the Black Pill.
Okay, yeah, I'll check that out.
It's not the 16 Commandments of Poon. It is the 16 Commandments for Poons.
Oh, for Poons.
And it's a satire.
Yeah.
Go watch it. You'll enjoy the hell out of it.
I'll do that. Next weekend, we're going to have the beautiful Oriana on the podcast. So come check that out. Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right, that's it. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
Want to do your wrap?
Sure. Yeah. I had something in my mind.
We can come back to you.
Yeah, give me a second. Go to Glenn first.
Do your wrap, man.
So you guys can find me on my channel, Glenn Lawrence. You can find me on Instagram at Glenn_Lawrence_presents. You can find me on my website at GlennLawrencePresents.com. Debating is fun and all that stuff. We're all here to help improve men. We are men that have seen struggles or even been through struggles, and we're not here to tear any other men down, but we're here to lift men up. Okay? You don't lower the standard. You bring people up to the standard. And that's what this DragonShip's about. We're about helping men level up, reach the standard where they need to be successful. And if that means sometimes we got to call people out, we'll do that. But we do it out of love for men. We do it out of wanting to see men be better. We want to see men have better relationships. We want to see men have quality relationships and have a better quality of life. And that's what the DragonShip is about. It's not about trashing Kevin Rae Wilder or trashing Alex from Playing with Fire. I mean, they may be casualties of war if the process comes as they were, but it's not what it's about. We're about lifting men up. And you know what? I would love, to see these guys both take a turn and see the direction that we're going in and learn from that and have that benefit them. So if you guys are out there, if you want to hit me up on IG, again, email or on YouTube. So until the next time.
Thanks, Glenn. Buds.
Yeah. So the last piece that I wanted to hone in on when it comes to dealing with conflict and especially frame and work comes back to what Laurent was saying at one point. And it's saying less. And to take it a step further, as long as you sit back, listen, and pay attention to those around you, you can figure out what your next move needs to be. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room. You don't need to try and control everything that's going on. Just sit back, see your environment, and then react accordingly. And it becomes incredibly powerful. That was just the last thing I wanted to drop on that. Outside of that, if anybody wanted to reach out to me for any dating coaching, doesn't matter what age you are, I help everybody, whether you're post-divorce, post-breakup, or just getting started. You can reach me at the Hudsman on Instagram, Also, thehusband.com if you want to schedule through there. But yeah, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much, Thor.
Oh, you bet. You guys go and you subscribe to HUDs on YouTube. Also, guys, keep in mind, we are broadcasting live to 5 different channels. These guys all have YouTube channels. We are broadcasting. We're doing something new here on the DragonShip. I think it's pretty darn special for sure. And also come subscribe on Rumble for sure. You know, I've got 74 subscribers. I need about 26 more. Then we can stream live and we'll actually go monetize there. We did all that within a week. So come see us on Rumble. Rumble is one heck of a platform. Our friend Andrew Tate is going to break 1 million there within a week or so of subscribers. So moves are being done. We can speak uncensored there completely. That platform is improving. It very much reminds me of the old original YouTube. And just to say one more thing, frame at work. Very important, framing conflict, very important. And we respect those that we talked about today for sure, to jump in the arena and have the debate, regardless of our personal opinions there. You know, they're still men and they'll see the light for sure at some point. Also, guys, come and see me on the DragonShip Monthly Mastermind group. That is a subscription service. We will be live next Tuesday, every second Tuesday of the month. There's a 3-hour mastermind Zoom meeting where it's completely uncensored and it's really more focused on educational needs and social needs for men. We work on money, muscles, game, and frame. And our members walk away with a dominant masculine presence for which they can actually use in real life. And it's pretty amazing, the members that we have there. So come and see us there, guys. Appreciate that. And I will see this group. One more thing. Thanks, HUD, for the extra work. HUDs produces this. It's fantastic. And Glenn, appreciate you jumping into the arena. And we got some stuff coming up. We're going to do some stuff on the Iron Rules. And I got some more ideas, and so do the guys. So we will not lack for content and having a chop up like this. I just have so much fun bullshit with my friends. So that's what we're going to do. And we'll see you next time, guys. Skull.